Everybody, I would like to introduce you today to my dear friend Lydia Griffin, who has the wonderful story of being one of the first children being homeschooled in Sevier County, Tennessee. So, welcome, Lydia, and please let's get right into it. Why did your parents decide to homeschool? Probably what, late 70s, early 80s?
Yeah, early 80s. That's a good question. I've asked my mama that, and she says it was so long ago that she doesn't exactly remember why. But I was raised in a very conservative household, so I would imagine that that had something to do with it. Um, and so we were homeschooled for about 2 years, but it was illegal at the time. And so my parents were actually taken to court, and I was young. I think I was in first and second grade when I was being homeschooled. Um, and I have very fond memories of laying on the front porch in the sunshine, just reading. My mom was an artist, is an artist. You know, she would teach us to sketch and things like that. I have very fond memories of that. But I also have a memory of the whole family around a table at the courthouse as well. And that's kind of a vague memory, but it's a core memory, obviously, because it's lodged in there. Um, so Mama homeschooled us for 2 years. At that time there were four of us kids. I come from a large family, but at that time there were four of us. And after those 2 years, Mama actually won her case, but she said she was so exhausted and that she just couldn't fight it anymore. And so we ended up going to school. And of course, there was a lot of stigma around it at the time as well. Now we all know homeschoolers, right? No family doesn't know someone that homeschools. But then you can imagine early 80s. I would think oh, it's going to give my age away, isn't it? But 1981, 82, probably I was homeschooled.
Sure, sure. And then you went to public school all the way. Fast forward, you get married, you have one child, and then you have two more children. And you and I met, was it 2018 or 19?
Yes, one of those. 18 or 19, I don't know. Time goes so fast, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I met you because at the library in Gatlinburg, I was giving a presentation about homeschooling for people that were
Mhm.
interested. Very few people showed up, but the people that showed up were solid. And one of them said, "You need to join my friend Lydia's hiking club." So take it away. Tell me about the hiking club, when you started it, and how it sort of evolved over time.
Well, you mentioned I had three children, but my first child, my son, I was a single mom with him for most of his childhood, but I did homeschooling, and we had a play group that was a very successful play group. Not all homeschoolers; it was a mixed bag, but we were like-minded mamas, and we got together every week. Those women are still very close to me. A couple of them are my closest friends, and I saw the benefit of that. Well, fast forward, Jacob was 13 when his first sister came along. And so none of those other mamas were having babies. So I had to, or I wanted to replicate what I had, but I wanted to focus on the homeschooling side because I knew I was going to continue to homeschool. At the time, this was going on 9 years ago. Wild and Free, that's an organization. It's pretty much national or international even now. But Wild and Free was kind of a fledgling organization, and I got wind of it. I hooked up with a Wild and Free group in Knoxville, which is the next county. Um, but it was just, I liked it. I enjoyed it. You know, I had a bend toward nature, toward hiking, but it was just too far. I needed something consistent. And I knew that if I had to drive to the next county all the time, I would not be consistent. You know, two little kids, one was in high school and then the two littles. I'm trying to make a long story short. Anyway, it's not my nature to start anything. But you know the saying, build it and they will come. I was having a hard time finding something close to me. So I just put it out on a couple of Facebook. I think they were Charlotte Mason groups. Charlotte Mason in the Smokies, maybe. I put it out there that I wanted to start a wild and free group. Two families showed up at the first one. It was the local park. Um, and it just grew from there. And we've been going at it almost 9 years. And it has been incredibly fruitful in my life, in my kids' lives. We're no longer a wild and free group. It served its purpose, but you know, we got away from that. We're just a hiking club now. Does that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for giving us all that background because it is necessary. And I want to encourage the people who are listening or watching, if you're thinking about homeschooling and you don't know where anything is, or you know you have one inkling, you have one person in your mind that can help you, just follow that one path and you never know where it will take you. Because, like I said, I offered myself to do a library workshop
Mhm.
because at the time I was ambassador, county ambassador for SMEA, which doesn't really mean anything except if there was anybody emailing SMEA. So that's Smoky Mountain Home
Right.
Education Association. If anybody in Sevier County reached out to them, they would pass them on to me and I would nurture them into, I would give them answers to whatever questions they had about homeschooling. And so I answered a simple call of, would you do a workshop at your local library? Three people show up, and all of a sudden, I'm being blessed because I get to meet a person who knew you. And then I get, so you just never know. If you're trying to homeschool and you don't know where your next step is going to be, is there any little step forward that you can take? Is there a podcast you can listen to? Is there a book you can go and ask for at the library? And that will take you to the next and to the next and to the next. The path will become more clear, is what I'm trying to say, as you
Yeah.
walk it.
And you may
Um,
stumble on those paths every now and again, but yeah, I agree with you 100%.
yeah. So you've been homeschooling now for a bit,
A
and
long time.
I'm going to ask one of those lame questions. What has been the most rewarding part of homeschooling? And as a homeschool mom, I know how I would answer that, but I want to hear it from you. And then because you mentioned nature, how do you incorporate nature into your education?
Well, I think my answer may be cliche, but cliches come because there's so much truth in them. But it's the time with my kids. That's the best part, wouldn't you say? I mean, and I
Yes.
know my kids, Adriana.
Yes.
I, for better or for worse, right? I know my kids and they know me. I guess I should say that's the for better or for worse, that my children know me. But we've had so much time together and we don't have to compete with um, outside. Now we're part of the outside world. That's a misconception. That's another conversation, I know, but that is a misconception that homeschoolers are just this isolated community. No, we're part of the community. But we've been able to pick and choose the things that we've wanted to be involved in, the opportunities that we've had to, I like to say that we take off the pretty days. The public school system, if the weather's bad, if it snows or whatever, they have to take those days off. We take off the pretty days and we go find some bit of nature to to immerse ourselves in.
Yes.
But that, I think the time that I have spent with my kids has been the most rewarding.
That would have been my answer too, because really, where it started for me was I didn't even know I had that in me, the desire to be at home with the children. I
Mhm.
didn't know I had that in me until I became a mother, and the chemistry just programmed me, just
Mhm.
took over me, and I couldn't say goodbye to them. I couldn't imagine. I and I'm not trying to put anybody on a guilt trip,
Right.
but that was my experience, and to this day this has been the most rewarding part of homeschooling, the fact that I know my children
Hmm.
and they know me, like you said, and we
Hmm.
have a bond and a relationship that I don't think would have been there if I had, you know put them in a building in the name of
Right.
education for 7-8 hours a day.
I agree. And I heard a quote one time and I love it. I have it written down and hanging on my refrigerator. It says, the best thing about motherhood for me has been the other mothers. And I think that's been true about homeschooling as well. The community that we've built, your friends, and we've developed friendships with families. My kids aren't friends with just one random kid, which that's okay too, but you know what I mean. Not just one. We're friends with the entire family. The little siblings come along on these things that we do, and it's been really really great.
Yes. And speaking of that, the group that I was a part of with the hiking club,
Hmm.
it was such a blessing to me. And yes, the children needed to be in nature and
Mhm.
they needed to walk around with other kids. And
Mhm.
like you said, different ages,
Mhm.
which prepares you for real life because
Right.
there is no real life scenario where you've got 25 peers your age that you're working with in your office, in your factory, in your company. There is no scenario like that. So the school setting for socialization is a very um fake sort of truth. People say, oh, they gotta be in the real world. The real world is homeschooling, where you've got people of different ages, different stages. You got the
Right.
grandma that's ailing, you gotta go stop everything and go take care of
Mhm.
that. You've got a neighbor that's traveling to Italy and now you gotta go in the morning and feed their cat, for the
Mhm.
next 7 days. There are so many things that happen in homeschooling that are the real world. And yes, we are part of our community and we participate in so many ways. So um, let's talk again about our hiking club. We've also camped together.
Mhm.
Um, we have a passion for nature. We're right here, 5 minutes away from the
Right.
Great Smoky Mountain National
Right.
Park. At least for me, it's 5 minutes. I know for you, it's a bit longer.
A little.
Um, but, but, um, you've taken us to places all around
Mhm.
East Tennessee and sometimes even North Carolina, sometimes Virginia. Tell me how your passion for nature, camping, hiking, has shaped your life and your family values. And let's get into the whole debate about screens and children's
Oh,
screens.
yeah, that is a debate. Well, I think um, what it's done for me most, I hope I answer the question that you've asked, is that I've learned that we actually need very little in order to be productive, in order to thrive, right? You just need to walk out your door and experience the creation. Now it's not always easy, I know. Um, but what was the original question again, Adriana? I'm sorry.
The
I'll
original question, no, that's fine. I asked a very loaded question. Your
no.
passion for nature, your
Mhm.
passion for nature has shaped your life and your family values and consequently your homeschooling.
Yes. Well, we try to make decisions based on time outdoors. Um, I've learned that, well, like, let's just use the mental health example. Families, normal families struggle with attitudes and behavior issues and things like that. I have learned that if we can step outside, sometimes just out our front door and get on our bikes. Sometimes we get in the car, drive. Like you said, we live at the base of this amazing national park. So either option is there. But if we can just get outside and spend some time, our attitudes change. We get the exercise that we need, the vitamin D. It changes everything. And I've witnessed that. I have witnessed meltdowns turn into joy just by being outside. Now, I fell into that. I'm not an expert. I really don't know anything. The older I get, the more I learn that I don't know anything. So, a lot of these things that I've learned, I've just fallen into them. And that's one thing that I knew my kids were, well, I should say, I was getting older. I was an older mom with my second batch of kids. And I knew that if I didn't start doing the things that I loved with them, if I waited until they were grown, I would be too old. So they just started coming along with me on these things, and we've had, and so many benefits have come out of them. The stamina that my kids have, I don't really notice it until we're around kids that don't have any outside time, and they start complaining and it's too hot and this, and we just don't have that problem. My kids have now. I'm not trying to tout them as these perfect little children. We have issues. We're all human, but we do have stamina that other kids don't have. They can put up with a lot. They can put up with not having things sometimes, going without, in order to go do XYZ or whatever, if that makes sense. Yeah,
Yes.
it's shaped everything we do because we try to have a focus. When we travel, when we take a road trip, we have a tradition of, we call them rest area lunches, and we pack a lunch and we stop at a rest area somewhere along the way, and we've had the best time. We've seen birds we've never seen before. We've seen massive pine cones that we don't have here, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me about, since we're talking about unforgettable memories, is there one hiking adventure that stands out, good or bad?
Ooh, well, I would have a list. One of the most recent, as far as good, we were in the Grayson Highlands. Were you with me on that trip in the Grayson
I don't
Highlands?
think so,
So,
no. Mm.
okay, so we were camping, and most of our camping trips as a group do revolve around hiking. And so the Grayson Highlands is a state park in Virginia, but the AT, the Appalachian Trail, crosses through it. And so we were going to do some hiking along the AT. Well, it had been raining. I mean, we're well accustomed to rain on camping trips. That's another story for another day. But it had been raining. It was my daughter's 10th birthday. It's kind of depressing. So we went into town, had some ice cream, and we're going to try to make some other plans. Well, eventually the sun came out and we were coming back to the campground, and we got on this trail. We decided to go ahead and hike because it was nice. We got on this trail, and when we got up to the AT, it was covered in these wild ponies. Now we knew they were there, but we didn't know we were going to have a chance to see them that day. So this hike, it had been raining, and we were about a mile and a half in, and then had these ponies there. And it was my daughter's birthday. It was very magical. That will always be a highlight. The first time that I saw Fall Creek Falls, I'll never forget that. That's a state park here in Tennessee. Um, yeah,
I
those would be
was
two that
with you. I was with you at Fall Creek Falls, maybe not your first
I.
time, but it was my first time, and I will always be grateful for you organizing that because it was right there. We always passed it on the way to
Yes.
Nashville, and I would see the sign, and I never knew what it was, and it was just, we came back with amazing pictures,
Yes.
and
It's incredible.
it
Yeah, and the
was.
whole family was on that. That's one of the good things about our camping trips is the whole family. So yeah.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you said no men for the regular hiking
Yes.
experience, and that really helps bond us as women, as mothers. There are so many things we can talk about when there are no men present,
Yes. And
and
we
our
love the
kids don't.
dads. Yes, we love the dads. They are welcome to come on some other
Yeah,
things that we do. But as the day in, the day out, moms need moms. Homeschoolers need homeschoolers. You need that solidarity. And the dads are obviously important. Homeschoolers predominantly are single income families. Dads are a crucial role in the homeschool. But mamas need mamas.
yes,
Mhm.
and yeah, and thank you for balancing that. But what I remember is that whenever there was a father that wanted to join us for a particularly exciting adventure, you would ask for permission, and of
Yes.
course we would say yes, because
Yes.
it was actually, oh yeah, we got a man with us, maybe we'll,
Mhm.
feel more protected or whatever. Although we're all tough women.
Yes, or the dads might think we're
Um,
crazy and not let us do it anymore. I don't know.
yeah,
Maybe that's the
yes.
thinking.
Exactly, exactly. So, book and curriculum ideas. Let's discuss that. It's we could go into so many things, like you said, as homeschool moms. And I want to say one more thing, to piggyback on what you said about mamas need other homeschool mamas. I feel like I am closer to a homeschool mom than to ladies in my church
Sure.
or from my um, country back home
Mhm.
that I grew up with who put their children in regular school. And I don't feel superior in any way. I just feel different. And
Right.
I feel like there's a connection, there's an identity piece for homeschool moms. You don't have to be from my denomination. If
Mhm.
you're a homeschool mom, you don't even have to be a Christian homeschool
Right.
mom. If you homeschool your children, we have so many things to talk about. We have
Right.
so many experiences in common. I feel like you are my sister,
I
And
agree
then
100.
if you're, go ahead.
Oh, I just agree with you 100%. And our group is a good example of that. We have the spectrum in our group of differing religious views, differing political views. We have that spectrum, different interests, but we do also have that solidarity and understanding.
Yeah. And I remember when we had a situation we were camping at Cosby, at the
Uh-huh.
Cosby campground in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. And I'm not going to get into that. Maybe that we'll make a whole episode about what happened then.
Yeah.
But I felt embarrassed and ashamed by something that one of my children said. And I talked to him very nicely. I said, you know what? You don't have to do this. We
Mhm.
could always help you with this, and we, you don't have to make it into a big deal, because we were always going to support you. And you know and I remember feeling embarrassed and ashamed, and you looked at me, and I opened up in front of you and the other four or five ladies, and you said, "This is a safe space, Adriana, relax. This is a safe space." Do you know how much you helped me with that comment?
I'm glad. I didn't know, but I'm glad.
And I've seen it over and over again. Sometimes we have our Christmas meals,
Mhm.
like the little Christmas party that we do, and in December, and we meet at somebody's house, and we share food, and just a wonderful time together. And I remember I started talking about one issue that I was facing, and this other lady who was hurting even more than I was with her own issues, she just sort of took over the conversation and started crying and weeping and telling us about her. And I was like, "Forget me, I don't have problems. Let's help her out."
It's perspective, I guess.
Yeah,
Mhm.
perspective. And it was just an idea for me to take into the future. Like, no matter how bad my situation is, there's always somebody out there that is hurting even more, and just to be able to help each other out. So, again, if you're watching this, if you're looking for a homeschool support group, you need one. There are many online, but find some that you can plug into,
Mhm.
um,
And it doesn't have to be big and
locally.
epic. It doesn't have to be anything big and epic. One or two is a good
Exactly.
start. It's good enough.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And if you, like you said, in our hiking group, there are people, on all, in different denominations,
Mhm.
and we even have different ways of homeschooling,
Right.
but yet we have things in common that
Yeah.
we can emphasize. And being a mother and being a homeschool mother, that puts you in a Venn diagram of very, very specific things that you can discuss. You don't have to
Mhm.
go to all the controversial topics that separate people these
Right.
days. So let me go back to my original question about book and curriculum ideas. You and I have talked about books over the years. You're an
Oh yeah.
avid reader, just like I am,
Yes.
and um, to this day, I want to thank you for introducing me to The Tall Woman,
Oh,
that book.
I love you even more since you love that book. Yes.
And so, this a recent book or resource that you found inspiring, for your homeschool, for yourself as a mom.
Well, um, I think you and I have talked about this book, and it's a common one, but it is outside of my normal reading, and that would be Atomic Habits. And I can't believe that I'm actually requesting a self help book because that is not my genre. I think of a lot of it, excuse me, is garbage. Um, but that book is incredible. I've read it twice. I'll read it again. I've got it on my kids' high school reading list. I think that I don't care who you are. I think it's a great book, but I think especially for a homeschooler. Of course, I'm a Charlotte Mason homeschooler, which is like a subset, and habits are a big deal, and so that makes sense as well. But that's been a really, really helpful book for me. But I also love to read hiking and backpacking books or stories. Um, Even if they're things I'll never do, I'll never be the epic Kilimanjaro. I have no desire to do that. If I only do the national parks in my region, I'm great with that. But reading other people's stories lets me know that I can do hard things. Grandma Gatewood's Walk, she was a hiker. She hiked the Appalachian Trail multiple times. She didn't start till she was in her 60s. Um, I learned what I am capable of reading those stories. So those would be my I could go on. You know that some people call me the book evangelist, so I could go on and on, but I'll stop.
I was just asking for one or two, and those are the important ones that stand out. I totally agree. Atomic Habits is the personal growth book. And I actually didn't want to say the words personal growth, because I
Uh-huh.
know how you feel about self-help,
I'm so sorry.
but no, that's fine. It's great. Do you get his emails on Thursday?
I do. I do. And I sometimes I'll get a backlog and have to catch up. But yes, they're very good. And they're short and sweet.
sweet and to the point, and you can really take one and go for a walk and think about
Yes.
the ideas that he's
Yep.
sharing, and it is just a powerful. And he's got a workbook coming out. um Maybe I'll reach out to James Clear. Maybe he can come on my show and
That'd be
we'll have an
amazing.
amazing time, I'm
That
sure.
would be amazing.
Okay, so future dreams, since we're wrapping up, as we land the plane.
Yes.
Somebody says that online. As we land the plane, looking ahead, what's a dream adventure or a goal that you have for your hiking club?
Well, some of us, my daughters included, we're working on what's called the 900 Milers Club. Now, not everybody in the group wants to do that. But if in the national park in the Great Smoky Mountains specifically, there are between 8 and 900 miles of trail. And once you do all of those, you can join the club of the 900 Milers Club. We're working on that. We hope to have that done by the time my second born is graduated. She's in seventh grade. So we're slowly taking those off. We're all hiking Mount LeConte this winter, which will be an epic hike. You've got to wear spikes when you hike that in the winter. For anyone that doesn't know, that's a great hike in the Great Smoky Mountains. Again, I don't have worldwide travel hiking plans. If I never leave the Smokies, there is plenty to do. But those are a couple of the ones I'm looking forward to. Camping in the Shenandoah National Park, that's another one that I'm hoping to do with the group next year or so.
All right. Shenandoah, that's in Virginia, right?
It is, yes.
And so you said before Mount LeConte, what did you say the goal was?
The 900 Milers Club to hike
Yeah, so
all of
so
the
what benefits of that? Tell me more about the
the
900 mile.
benefits. Did you say the
The
benefits? You cut out a
benefits
little
are
bit.
the,
Um, well, I mean, to say that you did it is one thing. I'm a native here, so that would be really cool. I think now we don't do things with a bend toward transcripts. I know a lot of people and a lot of homeschoolers do that. I don't necessarily look at it that way, but having said that, how amazing would that be for my, future college age kid to have that on her transcripts that she has hiked all of those trails. Now, because if you're part of that club, that's actually 1,600 miles that you've actually hiked. Um, and just being, out in nature, there's so much to see. You could go to the same spot every day for a week and it's different. So there's just a lot to see and learn from in the woods.
yeah. And the last question is about trying to create a screen-free environment for learning as much as possible. Um, without, I'm not trying to make anybody feel guilty. I know
Right.
there's one podcast that talks about taking the kids outside for 1,000 hours
Right.
every year.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that concept, and I love that podcast, but I can feel guilty when I listen to it. And sometimes I
100%.
just have to walk away and just do my thing. And so, in that context of we're not perfect, I'm not trying to make anybody feel guilty. That's my caveat. How have you arranged your homeschool in such a way where the little brains are allowed to grow screen free?
Well, it is an ongoing issue. I'm not going to act like I'm perfect. We have screens. We use screens. Now, we don't school on screens that much, except for math. But we have to take breaks because there are seasons where I feel like we do have, busy seasons. And sometimes at the end of the day, it's easier to let your kids have a screen when you need a break. But in the long run, it makes things a lot harder because of attitude adjustments and they become kind of lazy. And again, I'm not trying to place guilt on it. I'm just as guilty as everyone else of letting the screens creep in. But you do have to be intentional. So we actually started a break today. We'll go at least a week with no screens. We may watch a family movie. But I don't consider that part of the screen problem. When you're watching a movie together, you got things to talk about. It's a shared experience. But um, really, we just have to take breaks. We have to set aside specific times that are for screens. Otherwise, you can't be on a screen. Certain things have to be done first. Sometimes those things don't get done. You don't get a screen. I really don't have the magic answer. I wish I did. It is an ongoing battle for me too. I love screens. I'm not very good at technology, but I do love my screen. But so when we
So,
take that break, let me say that when we take the break, I delete all social media off my phone. I will only check my email, and then for work, I have to have an app that I use, and that kind of thing. Texting, obviously, but otherwise, I have to eliminate it for myself as well.
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And no, all that helps because like you said, we're not perfect. It's an ongoing battle. And tell us again the ages of your children. And was there a point where you sort of thought, okay, I can relax a little bit more about screens? Because when they're real little, we're told not to give them any
Right.
screen.
Well, my oldest is 26. I didn't have the issue with him. I was pretty strict with him, and times where there was no social media when he was growing up. Cell phones, he was in high school when he got his first phone, and there was no social media or anything. It wasn't even a smartphone. So really didn't have that much of an issue with him. He had a one gaming system. It was very basic, and I was very strict with it. Fast forward, the girls are, in this, and they are 11 and 13. I will say one of the best things, and this comes out of the hiking group, is that all of our friends are pretty like-minded, and their kids don't have phones, when they're young. High school kids do, obviously, but they don't have phones. They're so one of my daughters actually said that one time. She said, it's not hard on me that I don't have a phone because none of my friends do either. So that was really helpful. And we've developed that habit of not, I mean, they're just used to not having phones, and they know that when their friends come here, if they have a phone, they need to put it away. So I think it's a habit. And as they get older, and if you talk about it a lot, Adriana, we talk about screen use a lot. We talk about why we don't have phones, why, we don't watch certain things. And if you talk about it all the time, it just becomes ingrained in their mind, and it becomes part of their culture and part of their thinking. And it's really not as big a deal. I think if you give it to them young and then take it away, it's a lot harder. But they didn't have it when they were little. So, they don't know what they don't have.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Lydia, for coming
Thank
on
you.
my show. And I am so delighted to see you again. We need to get together for sure. And I'm thinking of doing a part two because we have a lot more to cover.
Sounds good to me, Adriana. Thank you so much.